NIMBYs. You know, I haven't really addressed NIMBYism directly on this channel, so today I'm going to remedy that by talking about who they are, why they are the way they are, and I used a whole bunch of data to figure out what exactly the NIMBYist cities in the US are, and you can believe that we're going to count them down. This is CityNerd, weekly content on cities and transportation. Viewer-suggested topics always welcome, and this started out being a Patreon suggestion, but it took on a life of its own once I started playing with the data, and I think I got like 10 other video ideas just doing the analysis for this. This is about NIMBYism though. NIMBY, not in my backyard for the uninitiated. They don't like anything to be built near them, least of all, more housing. Because to me, this is the essence of NIMBYism. You think of your home more as an asset than you think of it as an integrated part of a growing, evolving community. And when a lot of your net worth is wrapped up in a single asset, you'll have nothing more than a situation where demand keeps increasing and supply is kept in check. I think we all have an idea of what NIMBYism is and how NIMBYs behave. They show up at public meetings and city council hearings to block housing proposals and comprehensive plan amendments. But I'm someone who can never go off of just qualitative stuff. I really need to be able to see it in the data to understand it. That's what today's video is all about, and as usual, I'm gonna share my thought process, how I analyzed it, and what I found. Quick note, everything I did here relied on the US Census American Community Survey data and the time series for the Zillow Home Value Index. I'll leave more information down in the description if you want to explore it yourself. Also, I analyzed everything at the city level rather than, say, metro area because zoning and comprehensive plan decisions and policies really get made at the municipal level. So how do you identify a NIMBY city in the data? Well, my first thought was, it's a city that just doesn't build housing. So I analyzed all 562 cities that met the size threshold for statistical significance in both the 2012 and 2022 ACS. It ends up being cities around 75,000 population and higher, and I found the city that had the smallest increase in housing units, and that's Flint, Michigan, so already that's not really what we're looking for. I wanted cities where housing isn't being built despite high demand, not because demand is declining. And the median rent in Flint, Michigan and the change over the last 10 years are not indicative of a high demand environment. So if I go looking for the city where rent has increased by the highest percentage, that's actually Fort Myers, Florida. But there are some weird things here too. The vacancy rate is 20%, which doesn't seem consistent with a high demand environment. And that part of the Gulf Coast had a pretty devastating hurricane in 2022, which might have affected the data. So you always have to be careful when you're taking snapshots in time. Other stuff, the prevailing home prices aren't that high, so for the most part, people aren't getting crazy rich off real estate. Plus, Fort Myers is built housing. The number of units is up around 30%, so this isn't what I'd call a NIMBY city either. But now I know what I'm looking for. I want a city that has all the following characteristics. They aren't building housing, so supply is kept low. Vacancy rates are low. Rents are high, and they're increasing quickly, so all those things indicate a high demand environment. And home prices are high, and they're appreciating quickly, so it's an environment where the home is an asset that probably accounts for a lot of the owner's net worth, and keeping supply low and demand high is having the exact effect they want. So what did I do to measure all this? I created the NIMBY-est. I won't explain all of it in detail, but the standards for this are high. I mean, I really wanted to find the worst of the worst. And I'm looking at changes over the most recent 10 years of available data, so that's going to be 2012 to 2022. Just for reference, the Consumer Price Index rose about 27% over that period, so I want to see rents that are up at least double that. The S&P 500 went up about 2.8x over those 10 years, and I don't expect home values to match that. They generally don't, but I want to see them go at least 2x. I mean, if your home value isn't doubling, you're obviously doing NIMBY wrong. And as always, I left links to the data down in the description if you want to slice and dice it your own way. But this is how I analyzed everything, and be warned, this does end up being kind of a chamber of NIMBY horrors, so let's get into it. Number 10, Livermore, California, on the periphery of the Bay Area. Get ready for a procession of very charming but low density and expensive cities. Lowest vacancy rate on this list, 2.3%, which is nearly impossible to achieve and a testament to the molten hot demand, but I guess they're kind of done building housing here. I didn't use this as part of the analysis, but this housing data app website is kind of amazing. It helps you visualize how much or how little housing a city has been permitting by year. My census data said Livermore was up a whopping 850 units in 10 years. That's net, so construction minus teardowns, so the permitting looks pretty consistent with that astonishing number. 9, Mission Viejo, California. Let's see, median rent in 2022, around $2,800. Vacancy rate, second lowest on this list at 2.8%. All indications are that demand is super high, so they built more housing, right? Well, the census data actually says Mission Viejo is down 500 housing units from 2012, so that's probably not helpful. The housing data app doesn't really offer any glimmers of hope in the permitting pipeline. I don't want to come down too hard on Mission Viejo though. I mean, sometimes you just have more important things to do with land than, I don't know, doing your part to help solve the state's housing crisis. 8, San Leandro, guess which state? Also negative growth in housing units, down 250 over the 10-year period. And this is while rents are up 66% and the vacancy rate is about 3%. Very normal and cool situation. I mean, to be fair, they've probably maxed out the amount of housing density you can put around the San Leandro BART station. This is what it looks like when the guiding principle of your housing policy is to protect the investment value of existing homes by suppressing any kind of new supply. And then the same people probably wonder why the Bay Area in particular has such a high population of unhoused folks. Just a masterpiece of cognitive dissonance. 7, let's get a big city in here. It's San Jose, the highest population municipality in the Bay Area. Relatively flat housing growth, check. Low vacancy rate, check. Rents spiraling out of control, home values around 1.4 million, up about 2.5x over 10 years. And I just want to point out that between 2012 and 2022, the population of San Jose actually decreased. Just imagine that for a minute. In a city that looks like this, that has every possible indicator of blistering hot demand, blinking bright red, and you just can't see your way to building more than just a modicum of additional housing supply. Just seriously grim stuff. Number 6, Hayward, California. The highest percentage growth in rent and in home values over the 10-year period. So surely they're falling all over themselves to build more housing in what's obviously a high demand area. Luckily, unlike San Leandro, Hayward has 2 BART stations, so they really have an incredible opportunity to build density where it can do the most good. So surely the station areas aren't surrounded by low-density housing and surface parking lots. Surely not. Number 5, let's change it up radically and go to the peninsula side of the Bay Area. It's San Mateo, highest median rent of anything on this list, around $2,900. And look, I've been pretty sarcastic about all of these because they're all ridiculous, but you can legitimately see a lot of newer housing in San Mateo, especially around the Caltrain stations. But the net increase is only about 2,000 units over the 10 years I looked at, and this is in a city of over 100,000. Every city in the Bay Area is supposed to be doing its part, theoretically, and maybe San Mateo isn't the worst offender, but it's still just way short of what's needed. Number 4, Fremont, California. Rent's just slightly lower than San Mateo, and home values are lower too, but increasing faster, and I just can't get over the aerials of these BART stations. Fremont Station, there's a hospital, fine, that's a pretty solid trip generator. But then enormous expanses of impervious surface for park and rides. Apparently the highest and best use in a city that's got every possible indicator of white-hot demand for housing. South Fremont Station, acres of prime opportunity land all around the station, so I have a lot of viewers in the Bay Area. One of you smart people should let me know down in the comments what the plan is here. And if it's anything other than thousands of additional park and ride stalls, I'm gonna be very disappointed. Okay, you probably want to pour bleach in your eyes after just being subjected to all that. But in a minute, I'm going to give you an example of a city that's kind of doing the opposite of what all these cities are doing. And then I'm going to follow that up with the 3 absolute worst, including the city that I'm going to crown NIMBY Town, USA. Usual brief reminder to click on all the stuff, connect on all the apps, etc. You know what to do. So everything we've looked at so far is pretty extreme, but California cities are really just the worst examples of a dynamic that happens in nearly every US city. But before we get back to it, let's cleanse the palate by looking at a city that has the opposite of all these characteristics. And it's Madison, Wisconsin. I'm not saying Madison is the anti-NIMBY city, but I am saying that there's a pretty strong demand for housing here, as evidenced by the low vacancy rate and the fact that housing supply is up 27% over the 10 years in question. Median rents went from $867 to $1,260. Pretty reasonable increase, actually a bit lower than the national average. Home values are up 85%, so homeowners are doing fine. It all just seems so balanced and reasonable. Madison, tell us your secrets. Okay, that's your brief respite. Before we get back to the madness, I just want to let you know there were actually 22 cities that met all the threshold criteria to make this list, and numbers 11 through 22 are also all in California. So if you ever wonder why California is ground zero for the YIMBY movement, I think this video pretty much answers your question. Okay, let's go to number 3, Union City, California. The diversity of locations on this list is just stunning. Zillow Home Value Index of 1.2 million, around triple what it was 10 years previous, so extremely cool for the homeowners. And I'm not going to recite all the other metrics, but I know you're all dying to see what the Union City BART station area looks like, and I am not going to disappoint. There are DART stations way out in the Dallas suburbs that have like an order of magnitude more housing density than this. Just bonkers stuff. Number 2 on the list, let's hop back across the bay to Redwood City. Crazy high rents, spiraling out of reach, home values through the roof, and the city addressed all this latent demand for housing with like 1,600 net additional units over the 10 years we're looking at. Honestly, probably a lot of them around the Caltrain station from the look of it, but not nearly enough to make a dent in the Bay Area housing crisis. And just for reference, most of Redwood City looks like this, so draw your own conclusions. And the number 1 NIMBY Town 2024 title holder, Sunnyvale, California. Outrageously high rents, an outrageously underwhelming amount of housing added in the last 10 years, and a Zillow Home Value Index of a little over $2 million. Again, they've managed to build some new density in close to the Caltrain station, which is better than what you see at the BART stations on the other side of the bay. But once you get away from the station areas, this is what Silicon Valley is, and I assume this is what you want when you've got a $2 million house that practically tripled in value in 10 years. You know, some people are alarmed when you use the term housing shortage, and some people salivate. And when the second kind of person is who the policymakers are listening to, this is what you get. Single-family neighborhoods frozen in amber. Way to go, Bay Area. Most of what we think of as cities with great urbanism are older cities that grew organically over time. Washington, D.C. is a bit of an exception in that it's a city that was designed to be a national capital from the ground up, which is absolutely fascinating in itself. Brasilia is like this, and Canberra, Australia, and if you want to learn more about the wild story behind how Canberra got its unique street layout and urban design, there's a great installment of City Beautiful's Great Cities series that I have to recommend. No spoilers, but Dave Amos weaves together a great story, as always, and involves a worldwide design competition that doesn't quite seem on the up and up. An American couple based out of Chicago that burns the midnight oil, putting together a city plan that absolutely knocks it out of the park. A bit of a primer on the City Beautiful and Garden City movements that influenced the design of Canberra for you planning nerds, and the mystery of why Canberra never quite developed the way it looked in the diagrams. I'll give you a hint. Automobiles gained wide acceptance shortly after the winning design was selected. The contest to design Australia's capital from City Beautiful's Great Cities series is a Nebula original and exclusive to the platform. And it's a great example of how Nebula technical capacity and production know-how supports creators in tackling big visual ideas and bring the final product to a high level of finish. Being part of the Nebula community of creators has been indispensable to me in helping me improve everything I do when it comes to my own learning and having access to production support when I need it. It's a platform that keeps getting better every month, both in terms of adding new creators and developing newer ones like me, and I am so proud to be on Nebula. It is a streaming service that's owned by us, the creators, so you know when you sign up, you're helping us grow a platform that, by its very nature, supports all of us in a long-term, structural way. financially, professionally, and creatively. So if you want to support the continuing improvement of this channel and to grow its ability to reach more people and make a difference, signing up for Nebula really is the best possible way to do that. But when you sign up, it's not only an investment in our community of creators, it's also an investment in continuing to make the Nebula streaming experience itself better and better. And that includes a new look and layout that makes it easier to not only find what you're looking for, but discover new content and new creators that you're really going to enjoy. One part of this is categories that function as their own kind of mini services, like news, which is run by the great team at TLDR News to ensure the journalistic and editorial integrity of what you're seeing on the platform. And you can't really overestimate the importance of that these days. Also, this year, my videos are going up early on Nebula, so if you want to move your viewing schedule up and avoid spoilers, a Nebula membership is a great way to do that. Because if you use my custom link down in the description, it's just an amazing value. You can get all the Nebula content for just $250 a month, which is 40% off the usual price. And the lifetime offer is still available. $300, you pay once, and you get Nebula for as long as both you and Nebula exist. As always, whether that's a good deal or not is a personal decision between you and your actuarial table of choice. But no matter which way you go, a Nebula membership is a fantastic way to demonstrate your support for a one-of-a-kind creator-owned platform and to fund the continued production of amazing originals like the Great Cities series. And Nebula keeps announcing and teasing new originals, and the originals just keep getting better and better too. So for all of you who are already Nebula members, a massive thanks from me. Although I feel like I should say, you should probably be watching this video in Nebula where it appears without ads or with this promo section in it. Just my unsolicited feedback. And that's all I got. Thanks for joining today, and thanks as always to the patrons whose direct support allows me to just make videos where I roast extremely affluent cities that should really know better anyway. Keep the great topic suggestions coming. I'll be back with a new episode next week, and I'll see you then.